Welcome everyone to our second K12/P12 user group for Canvas this year. I hope you've had a really wonderful term this term. I'm hoping that most of you are through all your report writing and all that jazz at this part of the month. This will be nice and chill for you. But we've got some wonderful things happening in the user group today with some people sharing some cool stuff, and hopefully we'll be able to hear from people who are just joining us and able to share what they're doing at their schools as well, which is part of the reason why we have these. So welcome everyone. And before we get started, I just wanted to share and just check if you received an email in relation to Canvas Connect. This is an event that is happening in August in Sydney, and it's a full day event. And if not, I'll just share with you, actually I've got some links here. I'll share with you, this is the link to, if I can grab that, I'll just put this in the chat. This is the link to register for Canvas Connect. And if you need any accommodation or anything like that, actually, let me just fix this up, make sure I grab that properly. All right, there's the link. And if you need accommodation at the Novotel, which is where it's happening, then you can click on that second link there that I've just put in the chat. And you can come and attend the conference. But yeah, if you'd like to come along, then see if you can organize that with your school, and it should be a really wonderful day. We'll have a lot of people sharing some wonderful things that they're doing inside of Canvas, and lots of other things all related to Canvas. And yeah, it's not far away. It's next term, middle of term, so should be fun. It'd be great to see people in person again. So let's dive into the agenda for today. We're starting off with a little bit of sharing about using Canvas for elementary in the senior school. So it's not just for junior school, it's not just for primary, but you can actually use it in the senior school as well, very successfully. And we've got Gabby Corduroy from Barker, who's going to be sharing what they're doing in relation to that. One of the wonderful things that's happened, I hope I'm not stealing your thunder here, Gabby, but one of the things that's happened recently is the option to be able to choose the standard Canvas font instead of the Canvas for Elementary font when you turn it on at the sub-account level, which opens up that possibility, makes it much, much more senior friendly, shall we say, in the senior school. So what I might do, Gabby, if you're okay, I might hand over to you, and I'll let you share your screen. I'll stop sharing my screen. After that, before we dive into that, we do also have some wonderful product updates that's going to be shared by our International Product Manager, Ruth Thornton. And then, of course, we've got our normal Q&A and discussion and sharing, but feel free, this is just an online version of a regular user group. So feel free to jump in the chat, ask questions. Yeah, if you've got any questions from people who are presenting or anything like that, feel free to just jump in there and we'll see if we can answer that. But then also just general Q&A and sharing just at the end there. So I'll stop sharing and hand over to you, Gabby.
Hello, everyone. Can everyone hear? Am I good? Sorry, we are not a Zoom school in any way, shape or form. The only time I ever use Zoom is to actually talk to Paul. So apologies, I might fumble my way through this a little bit. And then also on that note, I am new into this sort of role. So I only started really at the start of this year. And Andy and Stephen, who you might know, call me their intern. So I'll get there eventually, go through everything. They're unavailable today, so you're stuck with the intern. Apologies for that, but we'll go through. So can I minimize that? All right, so I was going to talk to you about the Canvas for elementary theming, and that we are using all across the school from junior school and secondary school, and how that has impacted what's changed about using that for us. So the first thing I wanted to start with was we turned it on only recently. It's only been there since the start of this year. And we turned it on originally, as Paul said, with the Comic Sans like font. I know it isn't Comic Sans, but with the Comic Sans like font. And that was probably honestly the biggest thing that our teachers didn't like, but other things about it have been really, really good. So I was just going to run through the improvements that we found. We have started to use in the senior school the homerooms, and we're calling them our cohort courses. So what we're doing in there is it's a place to put year group notices. So we didn't have anywhere for that sort of communication. So this is something that we have, which pops up. It is 0 clicks. It is in just on their homepage, and we can put in the year group notices there. They can toggle back and forth. I will show you a couple of live things to show you what it looks like for students and for staff as well, but just to go through. So that was probably the biggest impact that we had, because we didn't have somewhere to communicate with an entire cohort effectively prior to this. We were relying on sending emails, which wasn't great because students are getting hundreds of emails and not knowing how to work their way through that. So that's something that we have done. The other thing that we are loving is the important dates down the side. It shows all of their upcoming assessment tasks. For the important dates, we do something called progressive reporting, which is essentially formative assessment, where we provide feedback to students, written feedback to students once or twice a term, and called checkpoints. So then that's where they can see like all of those things coming up. The navigation is just really user-friendly. It's really obvious for students to get through and to navigate around, particularly because, as you know, in the normal Canvas view, the navigation panel at the side could be different for whether they've got assignments or quizzes, and everything down the side on the left, that changed and the order changed. So this has kind of stripped back all of that, which makes navigation for students really, really simple. The last one are the missing notifications on the different courses. These things, we've had a little bit of trouble with them, but it's mainly just been the way we set up. We have effort grades, and students are meant to do a self-reflective effort grade, and if they don't do them, it turns up as missing. So we are kind of tackling that at the moment, because they're not done in every course, because you can imagine a year 7 students doing 10 subjects and they have to do an effort grade every term. So they're doing kind of 40 effort grades per term, which is just ridiculous. So we understand they're not all doing it. We're working on that, but we do like this missing, because they can see if they've got an assignment that's come up that is something's missing really clearly on that home screen. So they're the things that we're loving about the Canvas for Elementary. Continuing on, they also have the schedule view, which is one of the views that was in the normal one, which is great. They can tick things off and keep toggling through. The marks view, so I'll show you all this in a live version. So the marks view is really good, really clear. They can see what they're getting. And then the assignment enhancements. I know that assignment enhancements is available in the standard Canvas view, but it is one step easier, because they don't actually have to toggle to the assignment and then to the enhanced assignments view. They can just go straight there. And I'm sure you have all experienced before that with that, the more clicks that a student or staff member has to do, the more likely they are to lose track or not want to do it or complain about something. So I will just jump in and show you from a student perspective. So this is one of our year 9 students. So this is in his IST class. So that assignments view, what it looks like. So if from the students view, if they toggle through into this marks panel, so you can see there's nothing down the left-hand side, it's making it really clear. And then they can see all of their upcoming assessments or checkpoints, the learner agencies, which is our effort grades and things like that. They can see, so they could go through the normal feedback, but the enhanced assignments view is the one that if they click into here, and it's just super easy to get to, and then they can see the attempts that they've submitted. They can scroll and see the entire task description, anything that we've attached to it, and then they can see the actual rubric that is used for marking, and then all the way at the bottom, so they can see all of their results. And then they can see their submissions down the bottom, and then also the written feedback from the staff member at the side. Really accessible, really easy to get to, and all of those things which we are really loving about, and just easy to get to even from the step before, which we're really loving about this Canvas for elementary, even in the senior school. Some of the other things just to show you from the student view, so you can see he's in year 9, so then it comes in, he's got all of his weekly notices for year 9 from our kind of year advisors. They can scroll down, you can see all of his his courses. If he's got something missing, it's really easy to toggle to the missing units. The important dates which we have for our progressive reporting checkpoints, which again is to get that ongoing feedback, that really formative feedback. They've still got the schedule view, so they can come in and tick things off. You can see the things that are missing as well. Tick off that they're completing things, doing things, see their completed items, all of the normal stuff that you have normally seen. So yeah, so we're really loving it. Then, so from the student perspective, then from the teacher perspective, we've got our heads of house are actually our wellbeing officers across multiple year groups. So we've got middle school heads of house and senior school heads of house. And then so they're wellbeing officers and look after the pastoral care for a group of students in their house from 7, 8, 9 or 10, 11, 12. So what we've done here is we've actually added them to multiple homerooms. So this is a screenshot of a head of house's view. So when they're in multiple homerooms, they just stack on top of each other like this, so they can see any upcoming notifications for each year group as it comes in from like the year advisor sort of role. In that, if there are no recent ones, if an announcement hasn't been put for the week, it'll just say there's no announcements, which is also really good. And every new announcement will push off the previous week's announcement. So it's not like you're seeing week 7, 8, 9, you're only seeing the most recent one or none at all. Teachers still have that importance list, dates list at the side as well, so they can see upcoming like assignments for their classes. And also the good thing is the to-do list, which shows teachers like their upcoming marking. So I'll jump in and I'll stop acting as the student just to show you from my perspective. When I do this from me, I'm not associated with a year group, so I am not in a homeroom, so mine just looks normal. You can see that for my 2 classes, I've got some checkpoints coming up. And then if same sort of schedule view, the marks is, well, I'm a student in that course, so that's kind of what marks look like for students. And then we have the to-do list, which is essentially links to SpeedGrader that says that there are things that need marking and how many things need marking in each of these. It's probably a little bit different to how we use is probably a little bit different to most schools, because we do have they're called Connect Group or Connect Hub. So there are some things in there. So that would see that kind of go out to the entire year group that I don't necessarily need to mark. So that's probably a little bit more diluted than most would have, but it's just because I'm in these Connect Hubs as teachers. So it's telling me to mark these creative writing prize, even though it's nothing to do with me. So that is probably a little more diluted than what most people would see. But yeah, they're the kind of cool things that we're really enjoying about the Canvas for elementary. In the student view, so when it comes to an actual subject, we put in these little panels that take them to the modules, but they can see their schedule, they can see the upcoming ones, they can see their marks for that subject, any resources that we have. In what we actually have had created for us externally to just Canvas is this homework button. I might actually jump on and show you what that homework button looks like. So if I'm in a course, I'll go into my year 7 course, we've had this added in. So the homework button, essentially we can click it, and if we're giving homework, we can put in all of the details. We put in the due date, we say what period it's due, we select our class, and then you add it to essentially to the students' to-do list as well, and it'll sit on their calendar so they can see it. The reason we do this is because it also pushes to our portal system. So it gives them a to-do list and they can just go on and mark off. And then as you saw before, it kind of goes into their schedule, and they can, so it'll populate in every student in your class's schedule, and then they can go in and and tick it off if they've finished the homework. So that's kind of what we've added in, which is a really good feature, and it's really easy to get to now with the Canvas elementary theming. Other than that, the dislikes that we've had, which are not major at all. The biggest one, as I said, but it was almost like a blessing in disguise, was the Comic Sans like font. And we've now gotten rid of that. But when we did originally move to Canvas for elementary, this is probably the thing that teachers came back and were like, what are we doing? We look like we're back in the junior school. The reason why I say is actually kind of a good thing is because I find any change, teachers are always going to make complaints about something. We all do. We are all slow to adapt to change, and no one really likes change. And this kind of gave that, the Comic Sans font was the thing that everyone was focusing on, but now it's gone. We had people were very, very excited. So that's fantastic. So we're just back at the normal font, as Paul said. The other thing that is a dislike is the assignments view, but that's not the biggest issue really. I'll show you what I mean when we just go into one. So when students click marks, it gives them, I should have shown you, but when students click marks, it gives them a list of all their assessments and then how they've gone. I think I did show you very briefly. When a teacher clicks marks, it actually just says, students see their marks here and view the mark book, and sends them a link. For some of our things with like the effort grades and checkpoints, the assignments don't necessarily sit in a module. So it's not that we can just like have assignments that placed into the module at different stages. So I know this one does have a lot of assignments, but it's not always the case. So that means there are some assignments that teachers need to get to, and to get to it, it's an extra click. They have to click manage subject. And as soon as the manage subject is clicked, you have that normal navigation pane that students can never see this anymore. So that's another bonus, is that it's always the same, because that never changes for students. But for teachers to get to that assignments, that general assignments menu, is an additional click. So that's one of the things that we have seen that teachers haven't liked. And we are looking into like the homework button. So sorry, just loading. So like this homework button, we are looking into getting another kind of tab across the top here that will be assignments, to let them go straight to that assignments view. But a way that we've already gotten around this, as you can see with the Attend Commerce, is they actually have the assessment portfolio or an assignments, so a little button, and that's just a link, and we just link that picture to that assignments page anyway. So they just click that and it'll go. So it is just the one click instead of the additional one. So I know really minor, but again, there are things that have come up for us. So yeah, that additional click to the managed subject, and then the accessing of the items not in a module, which is mainly our effort learner agency, or our effort quizzes, which are doing that. But all in all, we've had a heap of really positive feedback. The students are really liking the homerooms in the senior school, to get those kind of weekly, or you could do daily notices. The ease to get to assignments and the new assignment view is great. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. That's how we're using it, and we've had a lot of really good feedback overall. So
thanks, Gabby. That's awesome. Yeah, it's definitely not limited to the junior school, is it?
No, not at all.
No. Yeah, it's definitely a much more streamlined experience, particularly from the student perspective, in accessing everything. So I'm not sure if anyone else would necessarily be considering that today, but I think it's definitely 100% a plausible option for the senior school.
Consistency is just really good across all of the subjects. Like, it doesn't matter what order their navigation pane's in, and they see the same ones in every subject, the same sort of stuff. So yeah, it's been really good change. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, that's something we've talked about for a long time, is really that student experience and that consistency for the students goes a long way. So it really lends itself to that. Does anyone have any questions for Gabby before we jump into the next
Or if you want me
section of our
to
meeting?
share and like navigate to something so you can see what it looks like from a staff or student.
Feel free to unmute.
I think it's outstanding. I'm gonna throw it on the beta, probably in the school holidays, I reckon. Have a look.
Camera.
Oh, there you go.
We'll have a look at the we'll throw it on in the school holidays, I think. So no, that looks great. Looks really good. I don't think it should be called junior. It should be just called school as opposed to university. That's more the case, I think.
Well, interestingly enough, some universities are also interested in turning on that view. So it's not exclusive to just schools in general.
So one question, can I turn it on and turn it off when I like it?
Yep.
So I can just go and turn it on now.
Just go into the sub-account settings, ticket, and turn it on. And then if you want to turn back off, you untick it, update account settings. It's all in the account settings for the sub-account.
Yep. Beautiful.
So Megan, did you see Megan's question there, Gabby, in the chat?
Oh,
So
no,
can you show
sorry.
the resources tab.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I'll jump on. I'll share my screen again.
Mm-hmm.
Told you, rookie with this whole Zoom thing. All right. So as a teacher in our resources, we can just see like, so all of the standard resources takes you to Canva. So it's kind of like a lot of the things that you'd have down in the navigation pane previously, all your Google stuff, which we'll probably get rid of because we're going away from Google. Then you can put Education Perfect in there. Campion Connect is often, so that's like our textbook. So that's kind of the resources.
So these are all your LTI tools that you have. Yep. So that homework tool that you had custom built was built as an LTI tool.
Yes.
Yep.
Sorry.
Cool.
Do you want to see it as from the students? I think it's pretty similar.
Yeah, I think it's pretty much identical.
Yeah.
From a student perspective.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. All right. If there's no other questions, we can always circle back anyway for the Q&A at the end and sharing and discussion part of the user group. But if not, then I'll hand over to the wonderful Ruth to go through some cool producty stuff.
Thanks, Paul. Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for having me on the user group session today. I think I've interacted with most of you in some call or meeting or something at some stage. But for those of you who haven't met me, I'm the global product manager for our region here in Asia Pacific. So I have colleagues in Europe and Latin America and obviously in the US as well. And so I work as part of the broader product organization to essentially make sure that the way that we do education and some of the nuances and things like that and the features and areas of the product that are really important to our users in our part of the world, that feedback goes back to the team and that we're developing the product in a way that's really globally mindful and suiting the needs of everybody. So we'll talk a little bit about a couple of examples of those things today. But before we dive in, I just wanted to get a sense, for those of you who are newish to Zoom, Gabby did a great job. You'd never know you were new. If you have a look at the reactions area in the bottom of the Zoom tab, if you can either just raise your hand or put a thumbs up emoji if you are either already using Admin Analytics, the new Admin Analytics feature in Canvas released in March this year. Feel free, obviously don't use that if you haven't, but if you just wanted to get a sense of who's already looked at it or using it today. Oh, Sven is definitely not. Rachel is. Jump in, team, let me know. Gabby's not, Leanne's not. Okay, for those of you who've said no with the cross, that's been very helpful, thank you. Could you just come off mute very quickly or pop in the chat? Is that because you don't know it exists and you've never looked at it, or you've looked at it and you've chosen not to turn it on yet?
We have only really, we know it's there. We've looked into it very, very basically. We've just had a lot of other things happening at the moment that we haven't had the time to kind of delve into it just yet. It's reporting season, so it's just been super busy recently.
I understand. You're busy as K12. I, would never have thought that that's the case. No, not at all. Okay. Yeah. So some people have looked at it but not turned it on, and some people haven't really explored it yet. All right, no worries. So what I might do is a small amount of what I wanted to talk about was just a little bit on admin analytics, because it is a new feature. So if people are interested in a whirlwind tour of that, if you could just pop a thumbs up for me, and I'm happy to do a quick demo of that and show you about how to turn it on and what it looks like and some of the some of the value props that it offers you, and then we'll move into some other stuff. But if people are pretty comfortable with it, then we might just skip over that. But it looks like there's a few thumbs up. So all right, let's go ahead and do that. So I won't even share my screen for slides. Let's just go straight into Canvas. Alrighty, so if you were, let's take a step back. For a really long time, we've had some analytic options at the admin level or the sub-account level within Canvas, but feedback from users pretty consistently has been over the last few years that doesn't really meet the needs of schools for a few different reasons, but primarily because of the static nature of the data in there. You're not able to download it or export it easily. You're not able to filter and look at specific areas of the school or specific courses, or really dive in at the student level to understand how people are going and how they're engaging across the board. So there's a few key reasons as to why we prioritize development of this area, but it's been a super popular feature since we did release it in March early this year. So we'd love for, as much feedback as we can get from our region. So I would encourage you to turn it on. Those of people in APAC who are already using it are absolutely loving it. So it is a feature option at the moment. It's a feature preview. So if you jump into your feature options tab in your account settings, you'll see it here as a feature preview, and you're able to toggle it on and then lock to enable it and lock it for your whole account, or leave it unlocked if you want to have the option at the sub account level to use it or not. And once you do that, then you'll see this new space analytics new in the left-hand side pop up in your account. And so this is where that new feature is accessible from. And this is accessible to root account admins, but also to people who are administrators. Just zoom out so we can see them a bit better. At the sub-account level, for people who are administrators at that sub-account level, if they have the appropriate permissions. So Paul and Adam might just link in there for us the community guides. You can see some more detail around the permissions that are tied to this capability. But essentially, once you're in this area, there are a couple of key things that I wanted to highlight. The first of which is the filtering experience. And we are actually updating some of the filtering based on feedback from those schools that have been using it over the last 3 months. But ultimately your options are, you can actually come in here and decide, well, I only want the data to be showing based on courses that are published with or without activity, or concluded with or without activity, if you want to do more of a retrospective sort of look. And you can set these filters each and every time that you come into the tool. So it's not a set and forget style situation. You can update this whenever you're having a look and trying to get some insights from the tool. This course format area is actually being stripped out based on feedback. This hasn't been that helpful for people. So that one is going to actually drop off later this week when we make some of those updates. You can decide if you want the charts and the interactives to show by week or month. And you can also set activity and activity criteria for both students and courses based on what's meaningful to your school. So historically, you might have received some information from your CSM or your CSM team about active courses and active users and things like that across your instance. And that data is super valuable. But a lot of that data also uses assumptions that Instructure has to provide in order to have a level of a sort of default for what that data means. So in here, you're able to say, well, actually, we think an active course looks like X, and we think an active student looks like this. So you're able to come up with your own sort of criteria or leave them as the default, but being able to do that so it's more meaningful based on your school and how you define those things. So that's at the sort of what is being filtered for all the dashboards in here. You can also then see there's some additional filters which were not available in our sort of our legacy version of this tool, where you're able to jump in, and this is just a demo environment, but you're able to jump in and actually decide which sub-account or sub-accounts you would like to show in the data. So you're not looking at everything. You can get really granular in the areas of your account that you're wanting to understand better. You can filter by term, so there's only default term here, but you might have, you know, terms based on your terms or semesters or academic years, being able to filter for specific courses, as well as for specific teachers if you want. We can then apply those filters, so I've just popped one in there for our K12 sub-account. And then the data is populated across 3 dashboards. So the overview dashboard is really here to give you a high-level insight and understanding of how Canvas is being leveraged across your environment. It doesn't give you too much sort of granular detail at the course or the student level. It's really around that overarching engagement and to get a bit of a glance at your sort of return on investment, really. How are people using Canvas at your school? And so there's a few different things in here. I'm not going to jump into every one of these, but what I did want to call out is that each of these graphs have a little tooltip next to them. So if you hover over that or click on it, it gives you a definition for what is being displayed in each of these graphs. And they're also all interactive. So if you were to click on any of the data points in here, it actually populates a graph or a table within the user interface to show you which of the courses or which of the users that are creating that picture that's being shown in the graph. And you can go ahead and download that data if you want, or you can go straight to that user's profile from in here or straight to a course from in here as well. So you can dive straight into the source of that data from within the reporting. So some insights around course status, around the number of enrolled users or students over time, course averages, interactions by category. This has been a particularly popular one to get more of insight around the different areas across your course, across your account rather, that are being used compared to others. And then also interactions over time. So that sort of really high level view of what are those trends around when people are interacting, as well as looking into the system. So that's the overview dashboard. The course dashboard, this is where we're able to get more insight around more of that granular data for courses, the usage, the activity, and also more insight around course performance and engagement as well. And so there's a few sort of high level overviews at the top here around the number of published courses or concluded courses with activity. We've heard a lot about this in terms of we want to know more about courses with or without activity, courses that are published that actually don't have anything in them, all of those sorts of questions that people are now able to answer because they've got some of these graphs at their fingertips. This data is a little bit skewed because it is a demo account, so there's not too much activity in here, but this is where you can see a more granular version of what was on the overview tab. So you can actually see across the courses in this sub account that you have nominated, or if you wanted to pick particular courses to compare, you can see how those activities and content points are actually being used across your courses in there over time. So this is really helpful if we're thinking about training or bringing in a new initiative for things like new quizzes. If your school is moving to new quizzes, we want to be able to understand what was the trend of use of classic quizzes before and how does that look with new quizzes now? Or we want to increase the usage of discussions at our school. Maybe we've done some training on that with our teachers or with our designers or whoever it is that sort of puts those things together. And then we can come back in here and evaluate, has there actually been an uptick in the use of discussions or not? So being able to evaluate some of those things and see if it is actually in alignment with what you would expect. Some high-level insights around course performance. So where are there courses where performance and grades are lower than maybe you expect across the average, and also with low student activity. So this is more of the academic performance, and this is more the actual student engagement. And being able to sort of get a sense of these hotspot courses and the ability to dive into those if you need to, without having to go and sort of find that information on a course-by-course basis, but having that surface to you in a single platform. And the third tab is the student tab. And this is an area that I personally really love. And it's the one that lots and lots of schools have given us great feedback on in terms of how they're using it today. But really interesting insights, again, high level insights about the number of students that have or haven't engaged or have engaged within the last 30 days, averages across the board in terms of academic performance across your courses within what's being filtered. the averages and the sort of the trends around submissions and whether they're on time or not. What are the high level overviews we're seeing there? And then some more granular detail about specific students and potentially people that we need to be keeping an eye on versus people that are doing as we would expect or overperforming. We can see insights about who these students are, how many courses they're enrolled in, which they have grades in. Are there any submissions compared to their total number of submissions? How many of those are on time versus overdue? So getting some sense of that, and how they're actually performing academically across those courses. So historically in Canvas, you've been able to see this really clearly at the course by course level, but not necessarily at the user level across the courses that they're in. So getting some insights there, as well as some insights around engagement and interaction. So in a K12 setting, generally we're seeing students in Canvas every day, if not many times, every day. But if there are maybe some students that have had a little while since they've been active, then that might be something we're wanting to have a look into. These tables are also all ascending, descending, so you can filter the data and see what you need. And as I said, we can go ahead and download this and take it out of the system and share it and provide it for reporting with decision makers or things like that, if that's part of the process that you're needing to do. So there we go. That is a new feature in Canvas, as I said, as of March this year. It is not on by default. You do have to go and switch it on, as I showed at the beginning. But this is a space that we've seen lots of people adopting, and it's been made for really good conversations with the CSMs, hasn't it, Paul?
Yep, definitely.
All righty. I'll just jump in the chat. Okay, great. That's from you, Paul. Are there any questions before we move on to a couple of other items? Bit of a whirlwind tour. All right, I will go ahead and stop sharing. If you have a question, feel free to to speak up while I'm getting this ready. No, all righty, I will just jump right in. All right, hopefully you can see my screen there. This is just a very quick update that I wanted to share around the use of account calendars. So some of you might have heard of this before and some of you haven't, but I did want to just quickly mention it because this was released back in November last year as a solution for schools wanting to be able to have calendars at that account or sub-account level so that they're able to share information about the institution. So things like, you know, it might be a carnival day or a swimming thing, or it might be something to do with assessment periods or open days or anything like that, that is sort of across year levels or across courses, or even being able to do year level or faculty-based calendars based on how you've set up your hierarchy in Canvas. And some of the feedback that we received about this when we released it was, it's a really great feature, but users have to actually opt in to actually show those calendars in their calendar, or those events in their calendar rather. And so this was a barrier for a few reasons. Number one, it meant that they actually needed to take an action in order to see those events. But secondly, for really young learners, it was something that was just more challenging to be able to navigate to and switch that on. So in order to accommodate for a couple of those things, we are updating this feature to have, as you can see here, an option between automatically subscribe. So once an event is created and that option is selected, it means that everybody who is in that account that's relevant to will see it on their calendar. They don't need to do anything else. It will just show, versus manual, where there's then an option for people to be able to opt in and see that on their calendar if they want. So there's just a couple of things that I wanted to highlight about the account calendars feature. Not sure if anyone's already using that. Please feel free to pop your ideas and thinking into the chat for others to have a think about. But that's been a popular feature, and I think that will make it even more usable. All right, I'm going to skip over that because we already spoke about that. Something else I wanted to speak about and share a little bit more on is around the new themes space. So just quick show of hands / thumbs / yeses or nos in Zoom. If you have already, or did you engage in the most recent voting cycle in the Canvas community for the ideas and themes process? It's okay if you didn't know about it. It's okay if this is the first time you're hearing about it. If you didn't even think about it, that's completely fine. No, okay, a couple of no's, quite a few no's. Okay, So very quickly then, for those of you who either didn't engage because you didn't know it was happening or because you chose not to, I get it. It's a super busy time of year and it's been a busy year so far. But ultimately, the Canvas community has always had a mechanism for users to be able to contribute new ideas, to say, this is something we would really love to see in Canvas or in Studio or anywhere in the instructional learning platform. And this is why. This is what it's going to be able to open the door for us to do. And so that was a great concept in terms of community voice and having a place for people to share that. But as you can imagine, with a customer base as large as ours, that became very unwieldy. And so we actually completely revamped the ideas process. And we moved them to be in alignment with a much shorter list of themes. And instead of just having this list that sort of sat there and when people were contributing, they weren't sure how many of those would or wouldn't be developed or whether or not others thought that they were meaningful, we have introduced a more robust and structured cycle for how we elevate each of these themes for community input and voting, and then a outcome based on that and a commitment back to the community in alignment with that sort of voice that's being shared. So in April this year, we had the first sort of cycle or version of this, and you can see all of this in the community, but a number of themes were chosen to be votable, and then we went through a voting cycle across a month period where people in the community who were users of Canvas voted based on their needs against those themes. And so the outcome of that is that the product team has selected 4 themes. That's not, everything that was in there, but the 4 themes that we've chosen. And the point of picking these themes and what comes next is that we're actually committing to delivering on value within each of these themes in the next 6 months. So that's the idea, that the community tells us what they want. We then pick the things that make the most sense based on how many people voted on them, the impact we think they're going to have, and whether or not we think they're achievable in our next 6 months with other commitments that we've made for development. And then we share them back with you and keep you updated on how we're actually developing and how we're going against those things and opportunities to be part of the validation and shaping how they end up looking inside the product. So these are the 4 that have been chosen. And personally, I'm really thrilled about these because these are all really, really valuable and in alignment with the types of things that our users here have been asking for. And I'm going to touch on rubric creation and usability in just a moment in the next slide. So I'll leave that one there. New quizzes is the quiz analysis, robust reporting piece there. So focus on the item and the student analysis in new quizzes, the user experience and the functionality in discussions. So that's a really key space for us as we look to make Canvas even more meaningful from a collaboration perspective. And the final piece there around differentiated learning at scale. This is maybe the one I'm most excited about because having been in this role for nearly 2 years now, I have never heard of anything from customers more than I've heard of this across our region and across our sectors, that people would like being able to differentiate content and things like that within Canvas to different groups of users or individuals within a course. And so that selective module release, which we absolutely recognize is just a small component of the differentiated learning at scale theme. That is the piece that we're nominating and moving forward with to deliver on in the next 6 months. And yeah, being able to support that more robust differentiation within courses so that you can support providing content and curriculum that's meaningful to your whole course and not needing to manage that in other ways. So the only thing I would mention about this in terms of moving forward is please do jump in and get involved. If you have 5 minutes to jump in and vote in the next voting windows, it does shape what we do in the product and how we move forward with it. So there's a great opportunity to have more of a voice, but we also take that voting alongside feedback that we get from sessions like these and from the user groups here at APAC to be able to decide how we prioritize the themes as well. Are there any questions on that before we move on?
I'm excited about all the rubric stuff.
Yeah, I bet you are. I bet you are.
I know I'm not alone.
No, absolutely not. So we might just jump in and talk a little bit more about that. There are a couple of key pieces that are coming or that are of focus for the product team in the next few quarters around learning evaluation that I wanted to highlight. So the first of which is that rubric creation and usability piece. And so this is you can see it says prototype, it's not final. This is just a part of the design ideation, but we are essentially completely redesigning how rubrics are created. At the moment, the way they are in Canvas is quite similar to if you were to take it off a Word document and put it online. That's how it looks in Canvas right now. And we recognize that there's some fantastic opportunity for us to evolve that based on lots of needs that we've heard from customers over the last few years. So there'll be a new interface for how you create rubrics, but also how you're using rubrics as part of the marking experience that's being improved and simplified as well. It will allow for rubric directionality choice. So we do get a lot of feedback that the way that the rubric criterion, the scoring is backwards for some people. So you'll be able to decide, does it go lowest to highest or highest to lowest, which I think will be much better. But also drag and drop, not having to set and forget your criterion, but being able to move your criterion around within a rubric. Yes, great, Jackie. I'm glad that that's thrilling you. It thrills me too. Being able to split grading schemes within a rubric. So at the moment, you're needing to use the one grading scheme for a whole rubric. You'll actually be able to mix and match if that's something that you're requiring to do. And also the process and how you bring outcomes in and either use them as criterion or align them to criterion. That's also being revamped, and we'll use a much more streamlined interface like what you would see with the new outcome alignment summary if you're already using that at the course level. So really exciting, lots and lots of things that we're doing in the rubric space. And so we'd love to connect with as many customers as we can to share and validate some of those designs. If this is a space that you're interested in, please do reach out to your CSM or CSM team, and we can definitely pop you on there to include in some of that interview space too. The next area that I wanted to highlight is custom statuses. So maybe slightly less exciting compared to what people are pretty jazzed about the rubric space. But the custom statuses, you hopefully are familiar with these statuses from within the grade book, these sort of mandatory ones that we put in as part of the product. So you will be able to actually set or a couple. We're sort of looking at what that's going to be at this point, but targeting 3 custom statuses per instance, where you can create these at your account level and decide what they're going to be. And then option to actually disable non-used statuses. So if your school doesn't use dropped, for example, or excused, then you would be able to actually remove them and disable them. So your teachers aren't actually leveraging those different statuses, and we're giving you that custom option. So if there are words or things like that that are more meaningful, then you'll be able to add those and make it feel more personalized too. No worries. Thanks, Jackie. The third area you can see there is around grading schemes. And so there is quite a bit of work that we're doing on grading schemes in alignment with some of the letter grade only work. And I'll mention that in just a moment. But for grading schemes, the key thing I wanted to highlight is that we'll be offering both percentage and points-based grading schemes. So at the moment, when you're building a grading scheme, you have to use percentages. We will be offering a capability to do that via points to 1 decimal place. And also just a redesign of the grading schemes area at the account and course level. So that's modernized as well. And something I am very excited about, which I hope schools will be as well, is the ability to nominate a grading scheme at the sub-account level. So you can actually say, here is a default grading scheme for the sub-account. So I think that will solve a lot of problems that people have today trying to standardize that. Alrighty, I'm going to jump in and talk a little bit about letter grade only, if that's interesting to people, because I think that's been a huge ask from our K12 sector here for some time. If you're happy with that, Paul?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, great. Alrighty. So really the goal behind the letter grade only piece is that we recognize in Canvas when you are using a letter grade, a grading scheme that is based on a letter grade model, that it still proliferates a point or a percentage everywhere in Canvas. So a student will see that they have an A and they got 90%, or they got 8 points, or whatever it is that equates to for you at your institution. And we've heard from speaking with customers all around the world that there are some key things that people want from this, namely the option for students not to be able to see that. And for some institutions, they don't want teachers to be able to see that either, but in other institutions they do. So there's a little bit of differentiation in how people are hoping this is going to ultimately look. But the way that we're going to be bringing this in, and I can share that this will be delivered in Q3, and we're targeting for this to go into production in September and beta in August. So this is really just around the corner. But there will be an account setting, and you can see here, it's actually called, sorry, it's so small on the screen here, but restrict view of quantitative grading data. So it's not going to be called letter grade only, it's restricting the ability to see the associated quantitative data. Because even though you'll still be able to see the letter grade, the points or the percentage that is based on, determined by the grading scheme, will still exist in the background so that data can be used as needed. And there'll be a little tooltip here where you can see some instruction around what this particular setting actually means. And so when that is enabled, there'll then be a new permission that is available. I know, another new permission, but an important permission that will be available if you select that account setting, where you'll then be able to determine who can see quantitative and who can't. And you'll be able to do this at the same level as you can with any sub-account or course level setting. So you can set this at just for a particular sub-account if you want. But you'll be able to say, we want students not to be able to see quantitative, and that is the default. And teachers, it will also be the default that everyone will not be able to see it. But if you're a school that says, actually, we do want the teachers to see the points or the percentage as well, then you'll be able to enable that so they can see it, but students can't. So you'll be able to have some flexibility in how this is applied. And then once that happens, this is a view of the assignment enhancements space. So if you're not yet using assignment enhancements, this is what it looks like. Quick plug, it's much better than legacy assignments. So jump in and start using it if you can. But this is how it will look. The student will see their, thanks Gabby, the student will see their letter grade, they've got a B in this instance, and they won't see the point or the percentage that they used to. And this will be the same when they're looking at their modules index page or their assignments index page or any other pages that you have visible where grading data is shown. You can see they just have the letter grades shown here. There won't be any mention of points or percentages. And this will also proliferate areas like module requirements. If you use module requirements, where at the moment there are options to say things like you must score at least a 9 out of 10 in order to progress from this point in the module, it will now say score at least an A or achieve at least an A. Some of those finer details are still being decided in terms of terminology, but all of that will adopt that letter grade only or the qualitative instead of quantitative approach across the whole course if this is being used. So I know this has been a real pain point for lots of customers in our part of the world. I'm not sure if there's any feedback from those of you on the call, if this is interesting for you or if this is something that you foresee is going to really solve that need, but would love to, if anyone wants to come off mute and share their thoughts on that. And Gabby, does this mean teachers could put in points, but then students just see grade? So when you're creating an assignment, at the moment, there's complete, incomplete, letter grade, not graded, points, percentage. There's a number of different options about how the grade is displayed. So when this feature is on, you'll only be able to nominate the non-points based ones. So you won't be able to display a grade as points or percentage if you have letter grade only on, because students aren't supposed to see it with that feature. So teachers,
we just had we've got, like, because I'm PE teacher, and one of the things we do in particular is we need marks to go to their report, but we only want students to see the letter grade.
Yep. So that's what I was sort of saying in terms of that grading data that you use for reporting and for feedback to your student information system and that sort of stuff. That will still remain because the letter grade has to be driven by some sort of quantitative spectrum. But what is actually shown to the students is just the letter grade component.
Yeah, because what we were doing is starting off with points, and then before publishing, we would remove it and just go to letter grade, or just to not like complete, incomplete, and the points are in the background.
Yeah, so that will continue to have the points in the background, but you won't need to do that. If you use letter grade, then it will just show the letter grade.
But the teachers can still put in, like, if there's a range in the rubric, could they still put in, like, if it was like 17 to 20, they could still put in an 18?
Yes. Yeah.
I love that. Thank you.
No worries. I'm glad. Not sure if there's any other feedback or thinking from those on the call. I am conscious of the time, so I will happily wrap up there. But I just wanted to, again, say thank you, and would love to come back and talk in the future around some of the work we're doing in the sort of e-portfolio, learner record, digital credentials sort of space, because I think that'll be exciting for schools as well.
We would love to have you come back and talk about that, Ruth.
No worries.
Feel free to disagree with me if you do disagree with me on that, but I feel like there probably is a lot of agreement in the room in relation to that. Okay, yeah, we are almost out of time, but before we finish up for the day, does anyone have any questions about what was discussed today that you haven't asked already, or anything you want to share whilst we're all together? And feel free to put your cameras on as well. Let's make it like an actual user group, as if we're there in person. Oh, there you go. Thanks, Ruth, for the themes link, if you can see that there in the chat. Yes, David.
Just saying goodbye.
Oh, okay. All
There
right.
we go, love it.
But if there's nothing else, we'll finish
mate,
up. Thanks so much for everyone who's shared.